sure Kirsten is going to die. So Joseph agrees to get medical help for her. He doesn't let anyone else out, but he brings Kirsten out of the cellar and upstairs when no one's home. He calls an ambulance, and then he spins this weird story, but he basically tells EMTs that, hey, this girl showed up at my house. There's a note from her mother explaining her condition. He doesn't even like claim to be family or say it's Elisabeth's. He's just like, this 19-year-old girl showed up with this note and I need an ambulance. Like,
weird.
The stories are getting bad.
Good.
So Kirsten is taken to the hospital by the ambulance. Police question her at the hospital, and they even release her picture to the public asking to identify her family, but she doesn't tell them anything. Obviously, no one comes forward because
they're like, we don't know who that is.
Yeah, her family's locked in a fucking cellar.
You might explain this later, but was she abused too? Kirsten, do we know?
They never talk about. No,
okay.
the only abuse they talk about is Elisabeth.
I wonder.
But police were suspicious of Joseph, and they reopen Elisabeth's missing person case after this 24 years. They relook at all the letters that Joseph had provided, supposedly letters sent by Elisabeth. Looking at them again, police notice some inconsistencies, and they're like, this doesn't really add up. They look at, all the letter that was mailed and the letters that came with the kids. Everything changed on April 26th, 2008. Kirsten was still in the hospital, getting worse. Joseph, and the articles say like no one is really sure because he doesn't explain if he had a change of heart or if he felt bad. Like we don't know why. But Joseph decides to let Elisabeth leave the cellar for the first time in 24 years to go see Kirsten at the hospital.
Maybe he loved Kirsten and like Kirsten wanted her mom. Who knows? I don't want to speculate.
Yeah, we don't know. Elisabeth went straight to the hospital, and the hospital so she shows up to visit Kirsten, who, remember, it's this girl who just shows up, and police are like,
Jane Doe,
help us find her family.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, this strange woman shows up to visit her. So hospital staff immediately alert the police.
They probably have their eyes on her 24/7, and they're like, no one's coming to visit her. No one knows. And suddenly they're like, someone knows her. Like, wait, this is our lead.
Police brought Elisabeth into their custody that night to question her about Kirsten's illness, her relation, and to ask, like, what, not to like, they don't bring her in as like a suspect, but they're like, hey, we want to talk to you. And they questioned her about Joseph's story. Elisabeth is very hesitant to open up at first. And then she makes police promise her that she never has to see Joseph again. She's like, if you I never have to see him again, I'll tell you everything. And they're like, of course. Like, of course. So she tells them everything about her father raping her, her 24-year imprisonment, the 7 children she had, including the one that passed, how half of her kids are downstairs, and I'll get in more into that later, but there were the downstairs kids and the upstairs kids. She tells them everything. She tells police how her father kept her in the basement. He raped her, about all of her children. She tells police that her father would come to the basement each day, make her watch pornographic movies, and then rape her. He was the father of all 7 of her children. She told them the abuse started when she was 11. Joseph, now 73, was arrested on April 26th, 2008.
Good. This also has Ariel Castro vibes. Like, I know that wasn't their father, but like the way, like there were children and miscarriages and abortions like in there, and they were just constantly raped and forced to watch things. And like, it also has those vibes to me.
They no article ever talked about. And I feel like Elisabeth would have told police if he was hurting her, abusing her kids too. So I don't think he did. I have no reason to think he did.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because we see this over time and time again with abusers of children. Like, oftentimes they'll single out like the one child, and she just maybe was the one singled out.
No one ever said that he abused her children, which were also his. Elisabeth and her children and Rosemarie were taken into police care. Rosemarie said she had no idea what was happening. Like, she had no idea. And Joseph actually backed her story and said that Rosemarie didn't know.
Well, that's good.
On April 29th, police announced that DNA tests proved that Joseph was the father to all of her children. His defense, this will piss you off, and I'll get more into this, but his defense lawyer argued, yeah, it's incest, but can you prove it was rape? Like, that was his argument. Like, yeah, no, they had sex and he's their father, but like, maybe she wanted it.
Do you guys ever do this? I just stared when in the like that thing where you stare to the camera like you're in the office and you just like look somewhere in the room, pretend there's a camera there and stare at it. Like, I just did that. Like, are you kidding me?
Police actually believe Joseph had been planning on releasing Elisabeth. They don't really talk about why, but they did, but I didn't have access to read them. But I guess they found some letters that he had written And he was basically making a plan. Like they thought he was going to release her, whether he had a change of heart or he was just sick of hiding it. But he'd written some letters. But his plan was to try to convince everyone he had like saved her from the cult. So he did plan on releasing all of them. But his plan, and he thought Elisabeth would never tell, was to be like, look, I brought her home from the cult and she has these grown children. And look, she's like, he just thought it would work.
Yeah.
But I guess if he had been keeping her hostage for 24 years, I get why he thought he could keep it going.
Well, and everyone sort of was beginning to believe the cult thing. And like, yeah.
After his arrest, Joseph, like his defense attorney, claimed the incest was not rape, but consensual. He said, quote, I am not the beast the media makes me out to be. Yeah, you are, but fuck you.
Well, also, if the victim says it's rape, it's rape. And also, she couldn't leave for 24 years. So what else do you think it was? She liked being down there? No.
Oh, I'll talk about that, yeah. When asked why then did he keep Elisabeth and her kids locked away, he said, well, I brought her flowers and I brought the kids toys. Like I took care of them.
That doesn't answer the question. Why'd you keep her locked away?
Let me finish.
Sorry, I'm so mad about this.
He said this is from him, he decided to imprison Elisabeth as a teen when she stopped adhering to his rules. He said, quote, that is why I had to do, like basically he said she wasn't listening to my rules. Quote, that is why I had to do something. I had to create a place where I could keep Elisabeth by force, if necessary, away from the outside world.
Until her early 40s?
Elisabeth recorded. So, and I thought this was cool because I feel like they wouldn't do this in America because in our system, the accused has the right to face their accuser.
Yeah.
But in Austria, because police had promised Elisabeth she never had to see him again, they recorded her testimony against her father and played it in court instead of forcing her to take the stand.
I like that.
I do too. And here, I don't think they let you do that here.
I've never heard of a case where that happens, but if listeners you have, let us know. That's really interesting.
On November 13th, 2008, which doesn't seem that long ago,
no.
authorities charged Joseph with the murder of Michael, who was the infant who died shortly after birth, which it wasn't a charge I saw coming.
No.
With rape, incest, kidnapping, false imprisonment, slavery, and assault.
Good.
I also didn't see the slavery charge coming, but...
No. Well, good. Keep throwing him on there, honestly.
What else can we charge him with?
Put it on.
Being a fuckhead?
Put that one on, too.
His trial began March 16th, 2009. He pleaded guilty to all charges except murder and assault. So there were some other things that came up at trial, like to keep them all down there and he would tell them, don't scream, don't make noise, like I'll kill you. Like he threatened them. But he was like, I'll plead guilty, but except murder and assault. Like I didn't do that. Like I just locked them up. I didn't do anything else, basically.
I think assault, though, you did do that.
Yeah.
So.
His defense argued that Joseph wasn't a monster because, quote, he brought a Christmas tree down to his captives at Christmas time.
What? If that's an indicator of whether or not you're a monster, everyone in America is not a monster because we all love Christmas trees. That's insane. I mean, if you celebrate Christmas and you have Christmas trees.
Yeah.
But come on.
Yeah, obviously. Elisabeth actually showed up to court one day, but in disguise. So she sat, but only one day, like only towards the end.
Oh, she's so brave.
Yeah, so she sat in disguise, but it's believed, and this isn't proven, he never said anything, it's believed that Joseph recognized her because the day after she showed up, he changed his plea and was like guilty on all charges, like just guilty. And so it's speculated that he recognized her and then felt bad, like something.
I guess it's even possible that he had like this feeling like he could sense something about her being there, like even if he didn't recognize her, and like just had that intuition that was like, you know what, fuck me, like I suck.
Yeah, so the next day he pleaded guilty to all charges.
I still don't like him at all, but at least he pled guilty.
Yeah. But another thing is like, in America, and I'll have to research more about the Austria court system, but the trial kept going. Because like here, if you plead guilty, there really isn't a trial to my knowledge. You plead guilty and you're sentenced, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a trial.
Yeah, but I guess you could, I guess you could change your plea though. People change their plea all the time. I don't know what happens after that. We have listeners who are lawyers. Heather, talking to you.
Yeah.
Maybe let us know.
Learn Austria law and tell us about America law.
Yeah. And then bring us there. Then bring us there and you can
I should learn more about this because, I
mean, it is our job, so.
I still have a day job. I can only do so much.
True.
But the trial kept going. So on March 19th, 2009, he was sentenced to life in prison, eligible for parole after 15 years. He said he accepted his sentence and he would not appeal. After being rescued, Elisabeth, her mother, and her 6 surviving children were all given medical care and therapy. Kirsten made a full recovery and was united with her family.
Oh, good.
Elisabeth's children both, you have to think she has like 2 sets of children. So they had a lot to overcome, especially the ones who lived in the cellar with her. So the 3 that were in the cellar had to learn to room.
Yeah.
They have, if you have seen that, when the boy comes out, they haven't seen the outs. They don't know what grass is. They don't know anything.
Well, and also, like, at least in the room, like, he wanted to go back to the room. Like, that's what he knew.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to go back. This sucks. Like, I hate this life. Like, children know what they know,
So those 3, and then her son, Stefan, I'm not sure how to say it. He had to learn how to, and they're all grown, but he has to learn how to walk properly because he was 5'8", which was taller than the cellar. So never in his whole life had he been able to stand up all the way. He had spent his whole life crouching. So he couldn't walk fair. He had to learn.
He was used to like slouching and stuff. I wonder if they had to like do physical therapy to like get his spine straight.
He had a lot of medical issues.
No, poor thing.
And the 3 children raised upstairs they didn't know Elisabeth. So they had to learn who their mom was and what, so it was 2 sets of kids. And then I read, and I don't blame them for this, but there was like this separation, like the upstairs kids and the downstairs kids, they didn't come to and they did after a while. And I'll talk about that in a second, but they hated each other. Like, oh, you got to go upstairs, but you got to it was this whole, they were not a family in any way.
Well, they didn't know each other.
Elisabeth cut off contact with her mother out of anger that Rosemarie stopped looking for her. But she did allow the 3 children raised by Rosemarie to go visit her, but not the other 3 and not herself. Elisabeth and her kids are doing well. She's living under a different name. I didn't try to find out more about her because if they wanted to know, they would talk about it.
Well,
so I didn't even
also,
go digging.
If she wants a different name, she probably doesn't want to be found out.
Well, yeah, that was my point.
Yeah.
The siblings, just from what I read, they all developed better relationships. The 3 children who were raised upstairs, for lack of, that's how it was referred, got to know Elisabeth as their mom. Like they came together, but obviously years of therapy. Elisabeth eventually started talking to Rosemarie and trying to develop a relationship. Josef is still in prison, still alive, and has shown 0 remorse. Hasn't really opened up.
You're right. There is a sort of happy ending to that because all of these people got their lives back, but after that, you don't really get your life back.
No.
You get it, but it's not what it could have been.
Well, and there's I feel like immediately, even when I was writing this, I was like, oh, it'd be way harder to be a kid in the cellar, but it'd be the 2 groups of kids, the 3 and 3 would have very different issues because the 3 raised upstairs have to, the man who raised them is their father, and they're they have to learn, so they're very different issues.
Well, but I'm sure they didn't know that the man was their father, and instead
I'm saying when they found out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying when this all came out and they found out. So you have 2 sets of kids with arguably very different trauma, even though they went through the same thing. They have different trauma. So it took, that was one of the biggest things the article talked about. It took a really long time for the upstairs kids and the downstairs kids to come together and see each other as siblings. And it took the upstairs kids a long time to connect with Elisabeth and realize, see her as their mom. It was just...
Well, because Rosemarie was like their mom, even though they probably knew that their mom had abandoned them or whatever. Because I'm sure...
Yeah, who knows what they were told.
Well, and I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that Josef would have kind of said things to continue to validate the story. Yep, your mom's in a cult, or yep, your mom.
Well, I imagine because police were coming around asking questions, I'm sure he spun something.
But imagine finding out you're my mom's been in the basement this entire time, and Josef is actually my dad. What the hell? And then in the basement, you have to have no contact with the world. You're right. It's just.
I did see one, and I will talk about this because it was in multiple articles. Josef's sister, so Rosemarie's sister-in-law.
Okay.
She did come out and she talked to the press and released a statement, and she keeps in contact with Elisabeth, and she was like, Elisabeth's doing great. She's dating someone, the kids are doing okay. So it's a happy ending, as happy as you can get with this.
That's what I say, as happy as that could be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they survived, and I'm glad Kirsten, I was worried. I'm what's her medical thing? I'm glad she got better.
Yeah, just that she was in a medically induced coma for a while.
Oh my gosh.
And then she woke up. But I couldn't even believe, it did remind me a lot of Room.
Yeah.
But.
Room is such a good movie. It's so terrible.
I know.
But if you haven't watched it, truly treat yourself with like a glass of wine and like that.
You're going to need 3.
The performances are